Hello and welcome to a presentation of one of my recent illustrations. It is November 2020, which may go down in history as one of the worst years ever. It should have been a nice year because the number, right? Just like when we got to the year 2000, everybody was really excited. It was a breaking point. And this is the second decade of the 2000s, right? You had the 1900s, the 1800s. Now we're in the 2000s, the modern era, the neo age, whatever it is. Anyway, here's something to think about. Maybe it's funny. I just realized that myself, being that we have this modern type of age. Maybe that has something to do with this illustration as well. There's a lot going on here. Let's have a look. The name of this illustration is Sisyphus, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Sisyphus. I don't know. It's Sisyphus. Sisyphus is a Greek mythology figure. He's a figure from Greek mythology, and Sisyphus is portrayed in this. Let me see if I can zoom in here. I'm trying to zoom in. Right. He is portrayed right here as pushing this boulder up this path. So what happened in Greek mythology is that, I forget the exact detail, but Sisyphus, he managed to offend or anger that very famous god we all know and love, Zeus. So Zeus punished him by sending him to Hades. Hades, it's kind of a weird thing. Greek mythology is, they accept very different ways of understanding things. Hades is like a dimension, it seems. And it's kind of what modern people consider to be hell, right? But it's not. At no point in time do they specify that there's some type of Satan overlord and burning fires and torture and suffering. People are afraid of Hades. They don't want to go there. But from all the Greek myths that I've read, it's not hell. It's just the afterlife. And as a matter of fact, some people have it good there. They say, if people were rich in this life, they might go, if they're rich. We might assume people who are rich in ancient times would be much like we kind of believe today, even though it's not true. We try to think that people who are richer and wealthier, they somehow earned it or they deserve it because, they would be better people. Obviously, we know that's not true at all. But we wish it was that way. So maybe the better people in Hades would go to some nice part of, people in real life, if they're good or if they were rich or just whatever the reason was, there was some type of reasoning that there was a better place in Hades that you could pay for somehow. So the man, the overlord, the god, he's one of the 12 Olympians who looks over Hades. His name is Hades too. So the place is called Hades, and he's Hades. Okay, so I need to make sure that was clear so that when we say Zeus sent this character Sisyphus, who was a king, he sent him to Hades for doing something, I forget what, but it's kind of irrelevant. He sent him to Hades to receive some type of punishment where he was going to be shackled or something like this. I don't know. But it wasn't to say necessarily that he killed him. They don't say that, but I guess it's inferred that he basically, took his life and put him into Hades. Well, that kind of means you're dead. That's the afterlife. But he had a particular punishment to be served down there. And what happened was the person who, it wasn't Hades, but another character who represents death itself, Sisyphus was very clever, and he cheated death itself, the character who would have been the one to kill him and punish him. He cheated him and escaped Hades. So it's kind of like saying he cheated. He was so clever that he outsmarted the devil and escaped hell in modern terms. Well, after that happened, of course, Zeus is still a god, and he's Zeus. He's like very, very powerful, the most powerful. He's the king of the Olympians, right? The 12 Olympians. He's the god of the gods. And so he knows about this. He seizes Sisyphus somehow and punishes him to roll this boulder up a mountain. And then in addition to Zeus doing that, it gets complicated. But let's just say that when he pushes the boulder to the top, it will fall down to the beginning again so that Sisyphus will have to push it up to the top of the mountain or the hill once again. So, and this is for eternity, right? So Sisyphus is just punished and sentenced to this horrible, cruel, well, maybe deserving. I'll leave that up to you. But this punishment, this torture, he's sentenced to this life for an eternity, where he's just constantly pushing this boulder up a hill, only to have to push it back up again. So that is Sisyphus right there. Not a very happy story, not a very easy. It's actually very simple, just a guy pushing a boulder up the hill as a punishment eternally. I could have just said that, but I kind of wanted to make it clear that there's this whole long-winded story behind it, and that it comes from mythology, and there's multiple parties involved, and that's always Greek mythology. When you know that whole story, and then you can start to see where I'm coming with this, how everything ties together, and it's long, and it's complicated, and it's deep, and it has so much meaning to it. That's kind of why I did a lot of stuff I did here. That's what happened down there with Sisyphus, and then we have this here. So I didn't really know how to represent an eternal, pushing of the hill and to have it come back. And originally, my first inspiration to do this illustration wasn't even necessarily about Sisyphus. He came in later. My first idea, I think, was that I wanted to do something that felt like life and death. And you can see more of that kind of feeling over here. And what happened was, in the middle of that, I had some more space. I mean, sometimes I'm just making stuff up as I go along because I like to draw. And Sisyphus kind of came in, and I said, oh, that'll fit perfect. I like that. Life and death and the struggle of man and all of these things. And I knew that I wanted at least a portion of it to be Geigeresque. So that means Geigeresque based on, it'll be the style of Geiger. I believe it's H.R. Geiger. And he's a famous artist who was an airbrush artist and made this very dark and gray metallic style that became famous in the movie Alien. He was the artist who basically designed all of Alien. He designed the aliens and probably the ships, and he's very famous. He did a lot of work, but he's quite old now, and I'm afraid some people might not know who he is. A lot of his work is kind of scary. It looks like devilish, and for his time, maybe he was more of a heavy metal fan. I don't know, that kind of feeling. But has a bit of a satanic kind of look to it. But I never really found his work to be scary. I just think it's super cool and intense looking, and everyone will agree that there's just something amazing about it because the sheer style, the execution, the talent in his work, and the detail and everything is just beautiful. So that's that. And everything just kind of came together. So as you can see, I have Sisyphus here pushing up the boulder, which I tried to make look a little, like it's been through, well, if he's been doing this for an eternity, it's probably that the ball has some wear and tear to it. I wasn't 100% happy with how that came out, but I reworked it and worked it and reworked it, and it just kind of ended up like that. And so does it give? I'll leave it up to you. I mean, I don't know. This is my attempt. This swirling, spiral-like, waving, winding kind of path that goes upward. That's my attempt to make it look like he's moving it up into infinity. And then there's a breaking point here where you say, what is that? It turns into like sort of a sphere, and that sphere starts to connect to the machine, the big machine over here. So that is my attempt, my humble attempt. I'm not super proud of it, but to have this, all of the energy and all of his work, his infinite work, I made him to be sort of a symbol of the struggle of mankind. And what happens here is that his suffering, his plight, and his I don't know the perfect word for it, but it's just his existence and all of that. It represents something. It's like the suffering and the work and the soul and the spirit of mankind kind of going up into this object here, where we're going to transfer his work into this machine. So what I thought this sphere right here, what it might be, it could be like a steam engine. It could be a planet that's rotating. Whatever it is, I hope that it kind of looks like it's just rotating. Okay, and so that is the sphere here in this area is, that's the transfer of energy. Well, I mean, there's nothing beautiful or magical or mystical. I had to get from this point of the illustration to that point. So there was, I mean, that could even be improved. I don't know. Do you have a better idea? But I kind of like it how it is, and I didn't want to put too much thought into it. It's just a breaking point. We have to, at some point in time, just admit that I'm trying to make a composition here, and so the composition requires some transition areas. They don't always have to be perfect and make sense. I think that's the whole point of surrealism, right? This is supposed to be surreal, and so we get out of that area there, and we move over to the machine. Again, this is just purely meant to be Gigeresque and have a certain style to it. And then there's this character here, which that we can talk about, which is a focal point. Obviously, she's in the center, the near center area there, and she's clearly, I hope, she's clearly tied to the child. So I call her Mother. That's the name of that, and this is embryo over here. So we have Mother and embryos. Everybody say hi. You get to meet Mother and embryo and Sisyphus down there. It's all of my characters. And over here, we'll come back to this area, but that's an astronaut, basically, like a spaceman, and he is stranded in space. So all of these together kind of equate to something. Let's see if I can get the perfect zoom level here. Maybe just about there. And so this the mother character, who I based off of, I'm not good at making like beautiful faces all the time. I don't know what the right angle is. I kind of don't want to spoil it, but I did look up a famous actress, female actress. I don't know how you say it nowadays, but she was, I believe it's Jennifer Connelly, and it tried to pick up some of her features. She's probably, like, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful actresses out there. I know there's like, everybody goes goo goo gaga for, what is it, Angelina Jolie, and before her it was Julia Roberts and stuff, but they're not necessarily my style. And I just thought she had a beautiful face, so I tried to apply a look at her as reference, because I can't, if I just draw a face from my imagination, it just, well, first of all, usually it looks like a dude. Second of all, it's like a cartoonish kind of look. So I used her as just a reference. It's not supposed to look exactly like her, but she has sort of an angelic face, which is, well, I just like her features. So we did that, and then we went to what is the meaning of all this, right? Her face was the last thing that I worried about. I just knew that people would be upset if I didn't, use a model or something for the face, because it would end up looking, ghoulish. So what I did care about was mostly the meaning behind her body and what it's doing here. Her body is connected. You can see there's the umbilical cord coming down here, and obviously the embryo being external to her body because she has like a machine body, right? So it's kind of like a cyborg kind of feeling. And the meaning behind that is just to say that we're going into this era of technology. Things are getting very scary for people. Everything. This should be a little bit scary to look at. It's not, something you want in your children's bedroom. Have hanging over over their bed or something for sweet dreams. It's kind of a creepy, strange thing to look at, right? But there's also, I hope, a lot of beauty to be found inside here, if you understand the meaning of it all. So she is, I do intend for her to be like half human and kind of like merging with the machine somehow or another. Or maybe she's an android, right? I would also accept that interpretation. If you think she's an android that is trying to emulate or simulate somehow the humans, and even all the way down to birth and everything. Well, there's something organic about it going on. So even if it's a robot, a machine, maybe you need circuits and wires, right? So if you look at a circuit board, it's always like, zoom in a little bit here, a circuit board on a computer or just, any kind of electronics. They always have the wires, and they're like kind of making this design where they're splitting up and moving around. Those are, like, what do they call them? Tracks. It's kind of like a railroad track that splits, and maybe it does different things. The electricity current, navigates to different lines depending on what the operation is or something. So that's kind of like branches. And then there's electricity running through those circuits too, right? So how funny is that if you look at like lightning, right? The lightning is wild and it branches out. But the difference between, and again, the whole theme is life and death. The difference between a circuit board and lightning is that lightning is chaotic, right? It has the nature of evolution and things like that. I'm using evolution as just like a metaphor here, but it's just wild. You don't know which way it's going to go. Whereas the circuit board and electronics, they're controlled, they're designed, and we plan which way the energy is going to travel in there. So I kind of made this whole area right here, that's kind of an analogy that I'm trying to make there. I'm trying to draw kind of an analogy of like the difference between the organized electricity and the wild electricity, and it's like, nature versus design, evolution versus design, life and death, yin and yang, on and on like that. So there's a lot of that going on all over the place. And then while we're looking at the branching of the lightning, you go over here and there's also a tree. A tree is a natural object, also has branches. As a matter of fact, the first thing that we think of when we say branch is probably a tree. That's the most appropriate place to start. And people like trees. I've always noticed that even if you go into cities, people go out of their way to like make parks in the city. Sometimes the roads are lined with trees, and you just you can't get away from trees. So I always believe some theory that people kind of evolved out of trees, like maybe apes or monkeys. Well, I think that's a pretty solid theory. But I think that even the animals. So we didn't like crawl up like fish directly and then evolve into humans. There was some kind of like ape or just tree period in life. People like trees are really important, and that the branching of the tree branches here is also very close to the embryo. So hopefully you can see once again there's the branching of the veins and I looked this up. If you go and look at a photo of like embryos, which I don't know how they do it, but maybe with the some type of like X-ray or MRI type of thing. I don't know anything about that, but somehow that you can see photos of embryo in the womb, and maybe they're even not real, but you'll see some veininess going on in there as well. You could probably see veins going through the embryo's body parts as well. There's just veins all over. And then that veininess is also a branchiness, right? It's the same as branches. It's something is branching out, reaching out, and splitting in different directions. And then your eye might come back here again to the mother, and then realize that, well, if you zoom in very close, I don't know if you can see it, but she has veins running through her body here. And then her veins kind of go down and merge back into the circuit board nervous system energy, and then you go back into the lightning again. And so there's this cycle, right, where your eye can go around and around and around and keep thinking about the veins and the machine versus, or the machine and how the machine ties into life. It's not really machine versus life, it's machine and life merging together. And then there's clouds and lightning and stuff. So, like, the spaceman over here, he has an umbilical cord too. When a spaceman, an astronaut, goes out onto a spaceship or a space shuttle or whatever, which is becoming more and more like of a common thing these days, he goes out there and he also is dependent on the ship, the life support. So life support is kind of like the mother, right? It's the planet, it's nature, It's everything you need. It's oxygen, right? Is provided to the embryo through the life support of the mother. And when a spaceman, an astronaut, whatever you want to call them, goes out into space, they also have they're dependent upon the mothership, as they call it, right? So it's like, I didn't even make this up. You see, it's already been thought of. Why do they call the mothership? Because, well, the mothership, right? It's like, where would you hear mothership? Would you hear it in a real Navy? I don't think so. Like, maybe, but you hear it on like I guess some kind of. I'm thinking of a Japanese anime that takes place in outer space, like a drama, like Battlestar Galactica or something. Something like that. You've heard it before, the mothership, and so that's the big ship that provides life. It's a place where everybody goes, the home base, sort of thing. So the embryo is attached to the mother through his lifeline, and then the spaceman here, he also has sort of a lifeline, but his lifeline has been cut off, right? So we'll assume that he's dead, and he's just floating through space, and the lifelessness of outer space. Whenever I think of outer space, is very cold, right? So outer space is cold, and if you go out there and take off your spacesuit, then you'd freeze to death, or he's probably frozen to death. That's usually how they portray it in the movies, and it's just a fact. I mean, that's a scientific fact, right? Is space, unless you're like getting really close to the sun, it's just very cold out there. It's not like the planet. So that is the coldness, right? The cold depths of space is a phrase that you can often hear in literature or movies or something. And next to the coldness of space, we go back and look at the embryo here. And the embryo is obviously glowing red and warm, and it's hot. Right? There's a contrast there. We have the cold and then the heat. And then if you take that and go back anywhere on the image, you can see that trend is happening over and over again, in addition to everything else. So, I mean, obviously, this guy, Sisyphus, he was once a king and now suffers this endless punishment. He's got to be hot. He's working, right? So it's supposed to feel warm in that area. And then next to him, there's the lightning with a stormy cloud, so it should probably feel cold. And as you navigate up towards the mother, and you can see she's kind of in a state of like ecstasy, so I don't think she's shivering cold or anything. And there's a lot of red tones used around her body, so it should feel warm again. And then if we navigate back over, to this where we get more machines and the engine over here, maybe there's more coldness and then warm again and then coldness. And so it's just back and forth. I did that on purpose. I mean, that was planned. That was the intention, to think about that stuff while I was making the composition. And so he's in cold space. He might look hot, but he's just reflecting the light, the red light off of the embryo is reflecting off of his suit. So I did think he should be cold. And if not, at the very least, you see the starry area there is a little bluish and cold. Should feel cold. I think that's about it. That's a lot. So kind of a lot of stuff anyway. There's the tree. I didn't do a lot of detail on it, but we already covered that. A lot of the lighting is just reflective lighting. So, the leaves. So the branches go out and they get smaller and smaller as and there's more and more as you branch out. And on the tips of the, I could have drawn it just looked like actual leaves, right? But I didn't. I did it this kind of childish way, where just at the tops, the tips, you kind of see the green stuff as leaves. Again, obviously intentional, because I wanted to just show how at the tips of all the branches, at the ends, what does that mean, right? We see branchiness over here, we see branchiness over there. But what is about the trees? There's something very special. At the end of each of the branches, at the very tips, we produce these things called leaves, right? And what does that mean? What is the meaning of the leaves? Well, the leaves, they absorb sunlight and convert it into energy for the tree, and or something like that, right? Or maybe they have a lot of purpose. They also probably protect the tree in a certain way. The soil, the roots of a tree, which people never see and often forget to think about, they go very, very deep. I forget how far they said, like, some tree roots can be found off as far as like a mile away from where the tree begins, branching off in all directions. It's the tree's impact on the earth is a very big thing. A single tree, just the roots go down very, very deep and very spread out very wide. And it's amazing how all of that works. And so it's something else to think about. I didn't articulate that very much down here, but I didn't think it was necessary. I think we got kind of deep enough. It didn't. It was could take a break and just let the roots rest where they are. But that was it. And then I just said, well, it makes some green leaves. Okay, so they're there, and they kind of taper off. What are they tapering off to? Well, you might say, if you look close over here, they kind of taper off, and it looks like they're blending in with the stars. So that just, and again, similar to the area over here with the ball, the sphere, the planet-like thing. I just needed something to transition from this area to that area, so I just kind of used a blending effect. The clouds is clear that I used a brush in GIMP. This is not very the Photoshop I'm finding has better brushes for things like that. But I like I'm happy with how that looks. I think it's okay. I like the way the clouds have the darkness and the light of the lightning, right, is kind of like reflecting off there. It could do more. I wish it was a little bit more fluffy looking, but I mean, it does the job. It's okay. Something about the hand over here. I do wish I might go back. I mean, it's my illustration. I can go back and add to it or do whatever I want. But if you zoom in here, it's a little rough with it's like scratchy lines. It could be a little more well defined or more organic there. But there's so much other detail in other areas. I kind of overlook that sometimes. I don't know if people see it, or maybe you look at it and think it's supposed to look like that. That's fine too. I kind of feel like maybe it's supposed to look like that. I can't tell. The hand over here, what's it doing? I was very nervous about the hand because this should be, if nothing else, it should look like it's a line. She's connected to the machine. And you see these pipes going directly into her head, but also into her arm. We zoom in here, this part right here. There's a little line that comes down and connects, so it looks like it should be going into her veins or something. And I didn't want it to look like medical necessarily. I also didn't want it to look I don't want it to look too euphoric to the extent that maybe it would be mistaken as a drug reference, because it's not. It's just that she's connected to the machine. Or if, maybe it's not a machine. She's connected to the technology, maybe it is a machine. I don't know. Whatever this stuff is, the industry, the organization, the design. Right? She's connected to the designed mechanisms. And, well, so what was I going to do? She had such a pose, a gesture. I just drew it out like that. I just thought, show the curviness of her hips, and her hands can't just be dangling at the side. So let's, have a puppet-like sort of look, kind of like she's not fully in control and she's under a trance. Right? And then I try to design the machine around her to put it where it should be. So that was a little bit of a challenge on that part, and then. But otherwise, I'm happy with how it came out. It is what it is. A lot of layers in there. And with that, I think that's pretty thorough. I don't have anything else. Sorry about all the background noise in this video. There's some weird stuff going on, and I can't win. So either take this video with some background noise or get no video at all, because those are the options right now. Okay. Thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, don't forget to check out my website, where you will find a beautiful button to buy me a coffee. Buying me coffee is awesome. It helps to fuel my art so I can make more of these beautiful illustrations for you and humanity at large. Let's make the world a better place and stop the wars and think more about life and death and the meaning of our fragile existence in this organized, designed machine world that we're building around us. Let's try and get back to nature a little bit and remember where we came from. Buy me a coffee. Go to my website, bschu.net. I intentionally made it short so it's easy to remember. B stands for Brendan. Schu stands for Schumacher. Bishu. You can call me Bishu for short. bschu.net. Bishu.net. We'll see you there. Buy me coffee or something, and have a look at all my other illustrations. I mean, it's super easy. They all just dump out onto the very first page, so you can scroll and click on the ones you want to zoom in. And there's some cropped off sections in there, so you can, whether you be on mobile or computer, you should be able to see that. All right, see you later. Have a good day. Thank you very much. Goodbye.